is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Interface.fm, design podcast by People Who Design. So, today we have someone who has delivered over 40 workshops and 20 talks in top companies, colleges, as well as online events. He has mentored around 700 plus design aspirants. He has helped startups reach product market fit with his design strategies for UX research, adoption, and growth, and a lot of things. So today we have Rohan Mishra with us, who is a product designer by profession and an investor at heart. He is currently working with Zomato as a product designer.
Today we are going to speak about Zomato design culture, what soft skills a designer should have. So let's get started. Welcome to Interface.fm. How it's going?
It's going good. Yeah, thanks for having me. It feels so good to talk to you guys, and thank you so much for having me. And this initiative is great. Look forward to having a fun conversation with you too.
Same here. So just wanted to ask you, how did you started your design journey?
I actually was very fascinated and by graphics, and what just happened is I saw one of my friends in 6 years ago working on something cool, and that was Photoshop back then, and he was making some graphics and all those things, and that time I got fascinated by the things he was making, and I just wanted to make something very cool, shiny looking with shining colors, and that's how I learned that this is graphic design, and I started doing it, and soon after that I moved to become like a web developer, and later I realized that I was mostly around making solutions, not actually around making the things shiny or those things. And then I worked with people, as I worked with some clients doing web and design for them. I realized this is actually design, and this is I'm talking about 4.5 years ago, and that time UI UX was new, so I started calling myself UI UX designer because that's what I was doing, right? In our early conversation, as I shared, that at that time there was no prototyping. So I switched from graphics to web design. I started developing because I want to click on that button and go to the next screen. I wanted to click on that thing and something should happen. And prototyping was not a concept back then, right? So that's why I learned web, and then I worked with people, learned more about how products work, what is the role, and that's when 4.5 years ago I sort of figured out that this is what I'm meant to be. Product is something I am deeply what I care about. I care about people and solving their problems. So that's how I started, and today it's been 4 years. So that's what I have been doing.
So I can totally relate to you, Rohan here. So when I started my career, so I was a developer. हाँ ठीक है, मतलब मैं बचपन से हमेशा डेवलपर बनना चाहता था. I used to code a lot, and professionally I was an Android developer for 3 years. So I always felt like it's a superpower and you can create whatever you want, right?
So yeah, I am actually still I get very fascinated when I get to code. I code sometimes for my projects or some things, and animating some stuff. I love it, totally love it. But then it's about solving problems to me now. Earlier back then it was just about coding, and now it's more about you compare it with effort versus impact, and that's when you see okay, is it going to create an impact or not? I don't get more time to do coding, but I love it whenever I time.
It's like a baby when you make something like that.
Yeah. So now that you guys are talking about it, and I don't know much about coding. I don't know anything about coding, in fact. And this is one thing that there's a very big question out there. As a designer, do you actually need to know coding? You know coding, but what is your point of view on that? That as a designer, when you are starting a career as a designer, do you need to know coding or not?
So I think coding actually helps you better, like, with collaboration. And then when some people are saying that this can't be done, which essentially now I understand, like, uh, they are actually saying this can't be done with this much resources or in this much time frame, right? So the communication becomes a lot easier, right? The handoffs become a lot easier, right? To answer your question in one word, no, it's not a like mandatory thing. But then it's about, like, you can collaborate better. You can, like, we always talk about designers. We love fantasizing about empathy, and most people, what they don't do is they do not start with their family, right? Their teams, right? It's about understanding, like, what is that, like, if you're suggesting something too big, it might take time. It will take time. It will take, like, so recently something happened, like, people were talking about uh, like, we were changing something very big. And the point was the APIs that we're using to get those data. As I understood it, I knew that if I'm going to propose something very new, they will not be able to do it because the API has not been designed in that way, right? So knowing it obviously helps. It gives you, like, the like more to talk to the developers, and then it helps. But you can actually learn that on the process. If you are becoming a designer, then obviously you can just walk up to the developer who's sitting right in your bay, or, like, wherever, and you can just get on a quick chat that, okay, like, and that's how you can start, basically. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it totally does. Uh, so now moving to the another question of mine is that, okay, this is one of the problems you told us that you faced when you started designing, that there was no prototyping available and you got into coding. So what I want to know is that what other problems did you face, and what do you think, like, the new designers probably face when they start their journey?
So, actually, let me be very honest here. I've been doing a lot of mentoring and like portfolio reviews for last, like, 3 years now. So I
Yeah.
have a constant problem with the people who are actually coming out of school and just becoming a designer or just switching. They think like whatever they have done in their pet project or in their like college or in their school, it's what they are going to do out there. But the reality is very different, right? Things move really fast. There are obviously KPIs, KRAs that you have to meet, and you do not. And when you get out, you do not talk in that language. You do not know what KPI is. Your priorities are very different, right? And that's what I have been seeing, right? And there is this concept of dribblization, and some people get into it. I also appreciate it. I also go put stuff out on dribble. But then the point is, I'm sure that that is not the actual problem solving I'm doing. That is just to polish my visual design skill. It will not help me a lot in problem solving. So the point here is that the real world and the pet projects, the small things, the things you are doing for portfolio, it's actually very different, very different. There are not a lot of stakeholders. The jury works in a very different way. They do not give you, so it in design schools and colleges, what happens is you have a whole semester, and then there is jury for the project that you create, right? And what happens is you get a whole semester. It's like 6 months, and in projects, like, I have shipped something, like, our team has shipped something in less than, like, 10 days, like, complete rollout. Less than 10 days we have shipped it. And not just, like, I'm telling you, it was a very big launch. It's very big. It's pan India or something like that. But at that time also, we were launching it like half India sort of thing. And the, this is not the something like, this is not something you get in that scenarios, right? Then there are not a lot of people in India, I think right now with initiatives like these and the communities that are like now coming up, these opportunities are getting created, but then it's not 100% there. Then I think if you are getting into design, hard skill is one part. I obviously expect you to do great as design work, like your case studies, your portfolio, your work, your problem accessing and solving things should be great. But then the soft skills matters a lot. If you cannot have a conversation with the people, if you cannot convince them on the ideas, if you're not confident to talk about it, it matters a lot. And then, are you a team player? Have you not these things actually make or break something. If I evaluate someone, this is something I focus more on, because design, first thing, I think it's given, it should be there. And even if it's not there, if you do the process 5-6 times, you'll eventually end up learning. But some soft skills are very hard to learn, like working in a team. If you are not a team player, it will take you years to learn how to be a team player, right? So these are some things, like I feel that the soft skills part are like where people suffered a lot.
Like, I think one of the most important and crucial soft skill which a designer should have, that is a communication. Like, it's like you are the धागा, or what should I say? Like, you are like एक हाथ से तुमने मैनेजर पकड़ा हुआ है, एक हाथ से तुमने अपना क्या कहते हैं, फाउंडर पकड़ा हुआ है, एक हाथ से तुमने, एक पैर से तुमने अपना डेवलपर पकड़ा हुआ है, और इट्स लाइक तुम पूरी कंपनी को जोड़ के कहीं ना कहीं रखते हो. नॉट कंपनी, मे बी अ प्रोडक्ट.
Yeah, so it's as you said, and it's very much that, these stakeholders, these people, if anyone on the team, if he does not believe in the idea or the process which you are following to solve this problem, then you don't know, like if someone is working with halfway clarity or these things, your product is going to suffer, and it is going to reflect on you as well, right? It's not just the product, it's you. Your product is representing you. You are only as good as the worst thing you share, right? Because then actually I get this baseline, I get this where I can actually see, okay, how good you can think in pressure, right?
Yeah. True.
So thank you for adding that, Shashank, because as you said, it's their job to having everyone in the same thread.
Yeah.
And it's very important.
As we all know, like, you work in Zomato. So how Zomato works with like a design culture? How do you build the design culture?
So okay, so at Zomato, one of the reasons why I joined was the culture, and the culture was very much around the ownership. That, like, I don't have a manager as of now. Like, I have been working at Zomato for last 1.5 year, 1.5 years, something like that, right? And I don't have a manager so far. I work with the team, the developers, teams, and you get ownership of that. With that being said, there is a team to help you, and you have to call out when you need help. It's a very fast-paced environment where the shipping cycles are very small, and the teams are actually very so self-driving thing is there, right? I personally love the ownership part a lot, and whenever I'm talking about Zomato, you'll hear this a lot, that the ownership that the people are taking, it's way too much, I think. In terms of so there are people who, single people owning the design of one line of business. That is, let's suppose it's our rider app, it's our hyperpure app, it's our the merchant side. Two people are doing the merchant side, right? I personally work on the consumer and support part, so the 3 people, but all the consumer app and all the products on the consumer app, whether it be Bold, it be online ordering, or or anything like Zomato Market and all those things, right? So in that terms, the ownership is high. You get to learn so much. It's very fast, and how we have structured it is you can ask for help and people are very good, like very good at helping, calling out that okay, now I need help, can you pitch in and help me? And we do weekly like sessions like design critique and all those things, so to figure out like if someone is like struggling with something, if there is some soft skills problem that is happening, like like in communicating with the product managers and the developers. So in that terms, like design at Zomato is good. Our product people, our product managers, product designers, like are like spend a lot of time talking about design, talking to designers, and actually designing. You might not know this, that all PMs at Zomato, like when I say all, it means 95% around people are at Zomato in the product design. Like they design, they do paper wireframes, they do like user flows, they do Figma. Like if some PMs are actually as good as like designers to put like mocks on Figma. And like this is one of the like crazy things that our like CEO, he also actually blocks time and do design with us. And that's the kind of culture you want to be in, like where the leadership is team is actually invested in design. So that's the culture actually that was the biggest selling point when I joined, and still I'm loving that part.
Okay. So, Rohan, since we are talking about Zomato, and we know that the sushi design system is one of like most of design systems out there in the design industry.
Yeah.
So, my question to you would be that what made Zomato make the sushi design system?
That's actually a very interesting question. Thank you for asking this. A lot of people want to know how we intuitive. So we actually started thinking about our own design system long back, and actually Vijay Verma he actually led this whole thing, and we were collaborating on like the team was collaborating to help him build this design system that we now have, which is Sushi, which has all of the like our own font, which is okra, and our own icon style and everything, which we call wasabi, right? So so that was the one thing that we wanted to solve, that all the products look from one umbrella. We have defined set of guidelines, the key pillar principles, and all those things in place, so that whenever we are trying to make something new, we do not go back and start thinking about all these components, the principles from ground up. Because at Zomato we have this strong foundation design foundation, and we want to build I'm very sorry build products on top of it, right? So that's why it made so we started thinking about we started with one product that was our consumer app, and we launched version 14. Now the version 15 is out, and we have actually changed a few things in the consumer flow. As we are launching new products, we have actually created space, the like real estate for those things, so that like things keep coming up. So that was the main thing, and the key principles that we defined are actually helping all those products. Now actually we have shifted all our products to Sushi. It also helps the developers. We actually created the same things for like the developer side of it, so that the consistency remain on the development part, and we do not have to develop everything again. When we are like making it, they just have to call a function, and all the properties that we have defined, it's there. If you have made a component in one side, let's suppose in consumer part, and we are using it in the merchant side products, right? This also goes there. And as Sushi is also based on some like key principles of making it intuitive, thinking about the user, thinking about like the wider audience, so if I talk about now, Zomato is in like 550 plus cities all over India, and in like 12 countries, I think. I'm not sure about countries, but we are operating in a very large market. So we had to take care of all these ground restrictions and local restrictions, and we had to come up with something that works for all these people.
Okay, so I just have this one question that was going around in my head. Why sushi? Like, are the founders like they love Japanese food? Like, you could have named it over Indian food, like probably bhel puri or
Chole
something like
bhature.
that.
Chole bhature.
Oh my god! Wow!
Like,
Would you
yeah,
be
chole design system or something like that, Shahi paneer or something like that. But why sushi?
actually there like we all love sushi actually. So I personally love sushi, right?
Okay.
So that, but it's also like someone else came up with this. I'm not saying this so if you put slices of sushi together, you actually form a bigger thing. And if I tell you honestly, um, our design system is made on a principle of atomic design, which actually is about putting stuff together, clubbing, and making the whole thing, which is the atomic design system works on atoms, molecules, and organism structure, right? So that was probably the thing, but it was mostly around we love sushi. And actually, to be very honest, we are very crazy about naming stuff, right? Like if I share my projects, so the last few projects that I have been working on, the internal name of them was Jarvis and Friday, and so if you actually talk about our typography system as well, it's called okra, which is also a vegetable, right? So we are actually crazy about superheroes, Marvel, and then food. So in our team, every single person has a superhero name. Like my name is Rohan, but then I have a superhero character assigned to me. And
What's your character?
What is it?
Actually, when I joined back then, I was when Surja and everyone was working here. At that time, I was the youngest, so my character was Superman. No, sorry, my character was Spider-Man, and they had younger people now in team, but it hasn't changed. Now at that time actually, Surja was here. Surja from he now runs his own thing off space, and he was here. So he actually gave me the name Spider-Man because I was the youngest among the team. Everyone was older than me. So yeah.
So is the match highest to Marvel or DC? Or like you have all the superheroes together?
We have actually people from only the Marvel universe. This is dark. And so yeah.
Okay. So adding to Ashwin's questions, I wanted to ask when you don't need a design system.
Okay. If you have a very if you have one or two product, like 3 product portfolio, then you might not need a design system, and because the things are always changing, the new use cases are coming up, and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of resources to update design system, so the maintenance is very high. You can create once, but you'll not be able to maintain it, and that's not good at all, right? Dedicated developers to work on it, dedicated designers to maintain it, right? And for smaller teams, it's not going to work, right? Design system takes a lot of your time, resources, your team's bandwidth. Forget about those developers if you are assigning them to do the design design system, because they'll not be able to get out of, because it's a constant change. The use cases are coming up, then then you are always moving to, you are always growing, and then this becomes very difficult. So in that case, smaller teams, single person, like I've seen so many individuals trying to design a design system. It's a thing for, like, if you have like more than three products, and it's a global product, then you can actually think about building. And if you are at that scale, then you'll obviously have a bigger design team and dev team, and then you can take care of it. But if you're small, then, like, use this freedom to actually solve more problems.
Yeah, just to clarify, audience, like people have this myth like UI components is a design system.
Um, I I wish that that way it wouldn't have like taken us like, it took us 8-ish months, more than 8-10 months to actually build a design system at our scale, at our speed that we ship. Like, to actually get something out, it took us 8 to 10 months, right? And like, in design system you have underlying principles. You can't just change it next day, because it would take a lot of time, right? Like, UI kits are just very small, and if you actually start making UI kits, after some time you'll be just making the typography, you're defining the colors, and you're defining buttons and some form components. That's all. But when what is getting used, what are the states, on what principle these are getting decided, what is the voice, what is the tone in which you are going to talk, and all those things come up, right? And when that happens, then you're screwed. So like, I couldn't find a decent word than this, that like, if you go into that, it's a lot of work. Seriously, I'm just thinking about, like, when we were doing it, it was like, so most people don't know that when we were making sushi, we actually started with something, and till the time we shipped that version, that was version 15, the components and everything changed because the principle, right? And we started with something, and there was no principles. Then we thought about, like, okay, this is the principle we are going to based on. Now let's rethink it. So that changes, and it takes a team. It takes dedicated people to do it.
Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah. So we are talking about design systems here, and when you're designing a product and on such big scale, there are a lot of things that you have to keep in mind, like the typography, the colors, like everything has to be connected, everything has to have a story, everything has to have a reason. That's the right word here. So what's the reason behind the colors that we see in the Zomato app? It was red before, it's not exactly red now, right? So and red depicts a lot of things. If we talk about color in psychology, and now it's totally different. So what's that? All that about?
So actually, Z red is red, okay, and the buttons that we are seeing, that slightly pinkish, and we took that call on the basis of, like, so there goes a lot in selecting colors. Like, it's about, like, the psychology, then it goes about different cultures, it goes about, like, the contrast ratio, the and all those things, the reasons. So let's suppose if I tell you, on the consumer side it's reddish, like, I'll not say it's exactly red, it's on the merchant side it's blue, on the support side it's green, and a lot of psychology has gone into actually designing the contrast ratios are there in place, and all those things are there, and like, we made it exact red, right? And it was the Z red, and that we call like, but we changed it because so as we were going out from the top these 40 cities, the entire perception about colors works in the natural way. Like the natural way is if something is red, stay away from it, and some on those lines. So we wanted to keep it very usable. We also grow it to like 550 cities, and which we have been seeing that this works. And the Z reds are the branding colors. Like even like if you go on the marketing page Zomato, you'll see the Zomato red. It's different than the pinkish color, the reddish pinkish color you see on the Zomato app. It's different than that, right? Because that's the brand we are building, and in the app we are using this light pinkish color so that the confusion and all those things does not happen even if we scale to the masses.
Yeah, and I would add that they're beautiful colors.
Thank
Like
you.
you could actually see the difference when we got the first update, and everyone was mind blown. Like that actually became a conversation. And like, dude, तूने Zomato का update देखा है? It like is the app's gone? Like it actually happened. I'm sure Shashank would also have experienced this.
Yeah.
Like random people, like not just designers, everyone like flipped over the like just look at what Zomato's done.
So that's pretty much it. I hope you liked the first part of this episode. If you did, please like the video. And for the part 2, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to listen to our audio podcast, we are also available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Anchor. Thank you for listening.